Hello, everyone. This is Christian Cummings, and you're listening to After the Session. This is episode 1 of Season 0. This is the first podcast episode officially. The guest on this episode is Mark Needham, and you probably know Mark Needham from... You know Mark Needham. You know Mark Needham's work. He worked with The Killers, Chris Isaac, Neon Trees, a sleeper agent who I really like, Red House Painters, Fleetwood Mac, lots and lots of people. And we recorded this about 6 months ago in Los Angeles at he's got this house with this amazing studio. He was going all digital when we were there. He had kind of been in the all digital or in the digital land for a really long time, actually, probably the better part of a decade prior to that, but he was doing a lot of hybrid outboard stuff as well. But Mark was really cool. He was very generous with his time. He was super busy when we were there. He was mixing, I think, a Third Eye Blind song while we were there. And he was just a really nice dude, sat down and chatted with us and told us some good stories, talked about told us some really good intern stories from back in the day, some good studio stories, and also discussed a bit of his methodology for mixing, which is kind of his main gig besides the occasional recording project. I think he was making a Chris Isaac record while we were there. But a couple real quick things. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast in iTunes. If you haven't done so already, you can, I think, click through to iTunes from our website, christiancummings.com, or you can just do a quick search in iTunes for After the Session. You should be able to find it, and then you can click subscribe. Email me at afterthesession@gmail.com. Grab me on Twitter, Ears Cummings on Twitter. I think we have a Facebook page up now, facebook.com After the Session. Probably shouldn't be too hard to find. With that, here's After the Session podcast number 1, season 0 with Mark Needham. I'm going to put a little bumper together. Are we going to make a bumper? We're going to make a little bumper with a couple of seconds of some of his more recent music for you guys to check out before we go here. Check it out. Welcome to the podcast, Mark Needham.
Hi.
And I haven't been to your studio yet, and this is insane. Absolutely stunningly beautiful, I would say. How old is this house?
It was built in 1927.
So, and you've been here how long? 10 years?
Yeah, it's late 2003, I guess.
Really? Do you ever think you would do something else, or are you kind of like into that whole house thing? Because this is pretty amazing.
Something else as far as a studio?
Like studio, like a mix room, or do you just like this environment? This is comfy as hell. So
I've been doing since probably somewhere around 1990. I kind of got rid of all my studios. I'd owned probably 8 studios by that point. And
oh, really?
And just kind of put everything in racks and multi-pins, so I could. And I just console, I could just roll in, park somewhere for a while.
Yeah.
If I get tired, I don't have to leave all the cables on the wall and start over somewhere else. I could just throw it in the truck, move it
out the door,
roll it out, and be up and running in
takes
an
you
hour.
Half a day. I had a buddy that had worked with you a couple of years ago up here. I think you had mixed a few tracks for him, and I think at that time you were doing a hybrid mix rig. And it seems like you've gravitated, you've kind of bounced out of that.
Yeah, I kept as the plugins got better, I would just keep comparing the pieces of gear that, if I have my Pultex or various things that, when the plugin sounds just as good or with they might not line up exactly, but if I put this one at 3.5, it
Yeah, but
sounds
none of the analog gears lining up with each other either. Like you have two pull techs that probably don't line up with each other.
I mean, once they started sounding as good, I just started getting rid of more and more gear. And suddenly I realized, I really don't have any analog gear left that I'm using.
And you have like my two favorite. You have my favorite monitors on the planet up there on the
ATCs.
Yeah,
those ATC 25s I love. I have that and the ATC, the big sub on it.
Yeah, those things are nuts. They had them at talking to my buddy Fredo over here. They had them at Lursen Mastering, right? Isn't that what they were using? They're insane. So you're all digital now with the Ravens, and then I'm just looking over here at the other rack. There's no analog over there except for those.
Right now it's coming back to that SPL Neos console over there, so we are submixing analog.
Oh, gotcha.
But that's probably changing Monday.
Oh, wow.
So that's probably going to go away as well. There are those 3 Dolbys that I use they're kind of modified for vocal effect. But I've replaced those. I've modeled a couple of those.
All right, so you're going to get rid of the Dolbys?
Everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to talk to you about what you're going to do instead of that for your Dolby thing.
I actually am getting... I have 2 different. I have one stereo pair that's matched, and another one that's kind of a weird one that we modified. But I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna have those modeled.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
So on a plug-in as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I have one at home. Just one channel of it for something similar. That you do.
Yeah, I have a friend that'll model them as a plug-in for us.
That's awesome.
So
I would love to see. There's nothing like that out there. Would that maybe be a commercial release, or you think it's just going to be for you?
I don't care about it. Yeah, I'm not sure that.
It's just for you,
if somebody
man.
wants to release it, there's.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll probably have the oral exciter. You can kind of do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite the same sounding, but if stuff's solid, if you're looking at it in a mix, it's hard probably to really tell the difference.
So you're all digital, and there's no turning back. That's it, huh?
I mean, I kind of made the jump. I sold my SSL in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that the workflow being able to turn mixes around, not have to leave a mix up on the console.
Mm-hmm.
Was really the only way to go. My workflow now is probably last year was probably 500 songs.
Whoa. 500 songs in a year?
You can't do, I mean, if you're sitting with I can go back between, I'll probably work on 10 songs today, but if I get tired of one thing, or it's like, all right, I want to break from that, I can switch to another song. I get an email, I got to pick up a recall for something. Every time you're trying to do that on an SSL,
it's at least an hour, right?
Yeah, and then you get it up and it still doesn't sound the same.
Yeah,
that's another hour tweaking, and this patch is wrong, and
So you found the convenience factor of digital to kind of outweigh for your particular workflow. It's going to be different for everyone, right? But for you found the convenience factor to kind of outweigh the
just where records budgets have been going since 2000, and people wanting recalls a year and a half later down the road, and kids are growing up working, doing everything on their laptops in their bedroom. It's it's a changing world.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I have a few friends who still mix on consoles and are awesome mixers and get great sounds on them. I mean, Chris Algie. Chris still mixes on a console and he kills it. He's a great mixer.
Yeah.
Andrew Sheps has gone all on the box.
He has? I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's. I think really to stay in the game right now, to be able to turn mixes around for the price that labels want to pay.
Right.
And personally, I love working in the box at this point, I think it adds a little more consistency across the record if I can jump from song to song.
So you will say let's assume you're working on a 10-song record or something like that. You'll sit there and work on something for an hour or two and then go, hey, let me bop on over to this.
It depends. If I just work till I get, if I feel like if I'm going down a rabbit hole on something, I just swap and go to something else, I'm a firm believer in taking a lot of breaks during the day or switching to something else, not just sitting there for 8 hours straight without a break.
So you feel like, if you sit there for too long, you're going to get sucked into a black hole of doing something wrong and not recognizing
ear fatigue. Your ears really quickly get used to what's wrong and that starts sounding normal.
Right.
I mean, that's just one thing about the way human hearing works. If something's super bright and you listen to it long enough, it stops bugging you, or you live by the ocean the first week, you're like, oh my God, what's that roar in the background? I mean, a couple weeks later, you don't even notice it.
Yeah.
So your brain sort of adjusts. If you can just come in, you get away from something for an hour, or you're working on something else, you come back, it's like, oh my God, what was I doing?
Right.
This hi-hat is so loud. Holy crap, So,
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there many times in the past. But I wish I could jump around a little more. Usually I'm stuck on a tune for 4, 5, 6 hours, I've got a couple questions for you. How did you get started in the business?
I lived in Humboldt County. I had a guitar teacher up there, and I came with him down to San Francisco and helped him start a music school. It was kind of a rock music school. Mm-hmm. And as part owner in the music school, and I started a studio along with the music school. I started recording some of the artists that were going to the school. It just kept expanding. I had a little 2-track and I had a 2-track and a little 4-channel Altec mixer and a Neumann U87. And
so not really like the traditional route, say, like with a
not really.
mentor or interning or any of that jazz?
I never interned, never worked as an assistant. I just kind of started my own studios, and the studio kept growing faster than the school. I split that off. I ended up having, made had a 3-room facility and a 4-room facility. It just kept kind of growing that way. And I probably would have been different coming up as an intern. I mean, I convinced people that I knew what I was doing, and I guess I had a believable face or something. But I figured it out.
No one knows what you don't know until you show them. Yeah. Hey, man. Great. I mean, obviously you made a successful career out of the situation, so you must have been doing something right.
I wouldn't know what else to do with myself at this point.
Yeah,
this is all I've ever done. I've never had a job, So.
Yeah, right. This isn't a job.
Well,
this is
not
work
really.
is play.
Yeah,
that's the way it's supposed to be. That's awesome. Are you doing a lot of recording?
I record. I have a project development company where we spend a lot of time developing artists as well. That's been a big part of our business since 2003. So cool. Any bands that are signed to the production company, I record, and I do record and produce a few other bands. I'm producing this Chris Isaac record.
So you're not just strictly mixing. Although it's probably, I'm guessing, 90% of your stuff. I don't know.
Probably. I did Fleetwood Mac. We worked on some stuff right before they started their tour. I'm doing Chris's record, but the majority of the time I spend mixing, unless it's stuff that's being developed for our company.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about your company?
A big part of it has been developing bands.
Yeah.
Even back when I was in San Francisco, I came to LA in 2000. But when I came here, I started with two partners of mine. We were developing 3 bands, one of which was The Killers, which was that Hot Fuss record.
Yep.
And had that pretty much done, except for 1 or 2 songs, and we're shopping it, and with no success. That finally got picked up by indie in the UK. And then, went number 1 in a week or something over there. And, went on to be probably a 10 million selling album.
That's insane. That's insane.
And that always encourages me. You get one of those, and it's like, well, let's develop another band.
Let's keep going.
Certainly not all of them are that successful, but we've had several that have done well that we've been involved with.
Yeah, so would you say a lot of your time's also, so obviously a lot of your time's got to be working with those bands as well, besides, working with more established artists?
Yeah, I try to do... we usually have 3 development projects going on at once.
Are you recording those, or are you kind of like co-recording and just like overseeing and producing?
Some of my record and produce. With one artist, I might be doing some stuff here. I have a girl in Nashville she'll be flying out in a couple of weeks to work with me, but I have her also working with a friend of mine in Nashville. I farm some of it out.
When you record with Chris Isaac, do you get a band together in a room, or do you like to kind of...
This was everybody in a room live.
Awesome.
I did a Beyond the Sun record with Chris, which was, I guess that was a double album, the last one we did, but that was done at a lot of it at Sun Studios, and it was 4 or 5 mics total. And Chris was doing vocals live. This is more of a big studio album,
Yeah.
The vocals we went back and so we did go back and do overdose, but I like the feel for a band thing like that. I really like the feel of dynamically of everybody playing together, even if you're not keeping a lot of the parts. In this instance, we ended up keeping pretty much everything from the live stuff and just comping it together. But it's tough with a drummer. You have a reference vocal, a bass part, and have to have the drummer go out and play a drum track. It's kind of hard to get any dynamics and lift into the chorus because you don't have other people playing around you.
Yeah, and I just spoke with producer engineer David Cole on the podcast, and this was a topic that we hit on in that conversation where, the drums are kind of the foundation of the house in a lot of ways, at least to him. And putting that foundation up last kind of doesn't make sense, or in the middle, sometimes.
Well, it depends on the song, though. I produced an album on Red Bull, it's been Five Knives, kind of an EDM meets Blondie.
Yeah, I know who they are.
Yeah, but in that instance, the actual live drums were the last thing we recorded. We had our basic loops that we started building things around. We had another 2 programmers working in the back room here, and they would keep feeding us stuff, and we would add some of that in. They'll go back and work on it. It was, some songs and some music develops differently. So in that case, we're building the dynamics by changing the loops and building it as we go to fit the song.
Yeah, changing.
Every song's different.
Yeah. What you're saying is there's no right way or necessarily wrong way to do it.
There's the way that makes the song sound good.
Yeah.
That's the right way.
Yeah.
If it doesn't sound good, you did it the wrong way.
That's awesome. Seems pretty logical, right, Fredo? So you've worked with Chris Isaac. You've done obviously a lot with Chris Isaac. I have one Chris Isaac question. Vocal mic for Chris Isaac.
We used 2 different, starting at probably the second album or the third album. The one was Wicked Game. That was a Sanken. That would have been the third album. That was a Sanken CU-47.
Okay.
Which I still have downstairs. They're great sounding vocal mics.
I've never used one. Had the
that was
privilege of trying
recorded.
something like that.
Wicked Game. Everything. All the vocals on that were recorded just in front of the console. No headphones. Just in S10s. And just singing right in front of the console.
So is the Sanken a condenser? Is it
condenser?
Okay.
Dual diaphragm, hypercardioid.
Hypercardioid. Okay. That's kind of where I was headed with it because
it's a pretty tight pattern.
Yeah.
Without if you listen on Wicked Game, especially in the verses, you'll hear right before he starts to sing, you'll hear the whole, and while he's singing, you'll hear the whole ambience kind of change a little bit because I'm playing the fader up and down,
Yeah.
But and then at one point we switched, probably on the 4th or 5th album. A friend of mine brought me a Dietrich microphone, which we were kind of having a mic shootout, and I got a friend of mine to bring me over Dietrich as part of that shootout. And
is Dietrich German or are they
Sweden?
Yeah. Oh, I should know that.
Dietrich de Geer makes the mics, and we used that, and it kind of beat everything. We had C12, we had C40, we had everything lined up.
All the usual suspects, yeah.
Yeah, and this sounded better, so we got a couple of those. We got Dietrich to fly over and bring us a couple mics.
Sweet.
That's what we've used since then. But those 2 mics are pretty much what we've used on all of his stuff.
How many records have you done with him? 7, you say? 6?
This will be 10 now.
Okay. How did you get started with Fleetwood Mac?
A friend of mine, Rob Cavallo, asked me to come in and work with Lindsay on some songs. He was doing a solo record, and Lindsay gave me a tune and just left me over at the studio to do whatever I would want to do on it. If I wanted to add overdubs, so I taken the tune, and you give me 3 days, I start overthinking stuff too much. I rearranged the song. I'd added a bunch of new keyboard, background vocals, a bunch of stuff, and the 3rd day Lindsay was going to come in, I was just in a total panic, oh my God,
what did I do? Oh no!
My God, I rearranged this tune. He's a pretty good player, but he loved what I did, and you know, it was that I'm not shy about.
You had a feeling and you ran with it and you weren't afraid to.
It seemed to work out. They don't always, you know. Sometimes you run into the train when you come around the corner, but it seemed to work well. And then that led to a Fleetwood Mac record, and I've worked with with them individually on projects as well. I worked with Stevie on some of her solo stuff, and Mick. We just went back in last year, and when Christine came back, and worked on some stuff over at the Village, about 7-8 songs.
Oh, cool.
We'll see when they get off tour if they finish it up.
So were they working in their room at the Village?
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Is that where everything kind of happens for them still? I don't really know too much about that story. I mean,
that was that was
space
the
over there.
Room they had built for Tusk.
Uh-huh.
And it was kind of fun for them to go back into that room, you know, and it was that the work ethic and the hours were a lot different.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, everybody's
a little older, and
we
got
were
other lives.
We finished by like 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Which normally would have been like, maybe you're rolling in 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It was
6 p.m. versus 6 a.m.
I hadn't worked with Christine before, which was great to have her in the room as well. She's so talented, you know.
Yeah. Hey, can I jump back to the Killers real quick? So Hot Fuss was the first record you did with them. You helped get them signed, and obviously were a big part of them and their process and everything. And
well, I mean, they were a super talented band with some really good songs, and
not to take anything away from them, because at the end of the day, right, the artist has to be good. Yeah.
I had two-part Braden Merrick and Jeff Salzman, and the three of us got together, and there were 3 bands that we were developing. Both the other ones got signed. They never went on to the success that the Killers did.
Not many bands do. I mean, they were hugely successful.
Yeah, it's not. They're rare that you get those. Kind of. I mean, that was sort of Hot Fuss was kind of one of those game changer records that people still refer back to 10 years later.
Right. So it really was. I mean, I remember it well, and it definitely it made a lot of other bands at the time kind of refocus in a direction. I think it had an impact.
One thing a lot of bands didn't get from that is, it was kind of a cool kind of slightly lo-fi set, but the main thing is that those were great songs with big hooks, and the lyrics were awesome.
Yeah,
on those songs, and I'd see bands that would come in and try to try to be that, but it's like, I mean, listen to those lyrics and the melodies. It's like, come on, you're missing the reason this was a big success.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember the first big show that I went to. I mean, I saw them from very few people in the audience to the first show we went to at Honda Center, which was I think was the first big venue they played here in LA. And I went in with Will, who works with me, and we were just seeing 20,000 people there, and everybody in the crowd knew the lyrics to every song. It was just like, yeah, this is why this works.
You're like, okay.
People loved they loved the stories behind that stuff. They knew every lyric to every song.
Yeah.
I did. I worked on the stuff a year. I didn't know the lyrics to every song. I certainly couldn't remember them.
Yeah. How many records did you do with them after that? What other kind of stuff have you been involved with them?
I did some single mixes on some radio stuff, but we did the first record and then went on and tried others. Did other things.
I have written down you did some stuff with Pete Yorn.
I did a record with Pete.
I'm a fan.
Yeah,
so.
I just saw Pete recently. One time Polly and I ran into him at a restaurant. But yeah, he's a talented guy, super nice guy. I really love Pete.
Did you mix for him? Did you record with him?
Mostly mixing, some overdub, figuring out just kind of how to construct these tunes. He'd had a few different kind of production things on it, and we were just trying to assemble it and make it all a record.
Is he the kind of guy that jumps in and is really hands-on and involved in all the process, or?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, he would be pretty good at giving me my space to do what I do, and then come in and, yeah, that's great. Let's try this a different way, kind of thing,
Do you find having someone give you your space is really helpful to your workflow?
Yeah,
it seems like it would be.
It's easy for me. Like, I don't like people to sit and look over my shoulder when I'm setting up mixes. It's a little distracting for me.
Yeah. Do you prefer the artist is here during your mixing, or do you kind of like to work unattended?
I'd rather work on. I mean, if people are here, sometimes if people are here, they just want to they ask a lot of questions while you're doing things.
Yeah.
And I move really fast, and I kind of have a set way that I start things. I like to get. I mean, I do like especially if I'm really getting into an album with somebody. Is I like to get a mix up. Here's kind of where I would go with it. I love to actually have them listen at their house first, because people come in and listen on these speakers in this room. They've never lived,
It's not going to sound bad in here, right? To them. Is that what you mean?
It's going to sound one way, but they have no idea. They don't sit in here every day. They have no idea what it's. It's like the first time you listen at your whatever you listen at your house or in your car, and that way you really have an idea what the stuff sounds like. When you come in here, you have something to relate it to.
Right.
So I usually like to try to focus on get one tune, 90% there. Just really get. Here's kind of the vibe. Every song, of course, is different, but, if you can give me a couple representative songs from the album, we get those, those feeling good. Then it gives us some kind of a template to work on.
Right. Do you feel, like, I notice personally, like, when I'm mixing attended sessions, I'm more of a fan of doing, like, half attended, like saying, hey, let me get this song, get all the monkey work out of the way, and then let's come in, and when I'm doing delay rides or something like that, let's talk about that or what have you. But I also find like having them sit on the couch and then like talking to their girlfriends on the phone can be a little distracting and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I started in 1970s. When I was probably really starting to mix records. 'Cause back then there weren't separate mixing engineers. So when I was really starting to mix bigger rock records, like probably mid 70s or through the 80s, they were always with it was pre-automation. You had the band in there, people wanted to ride the bass fader, he's supposed to go from this mark, and he's always overshooting the mark.
Because the bass player's the one riding the fader.
So you always had everybody in the room, and everybody's always talking. I can't, for me, if I hear any other noise going on anywhere else in the room, you're completely distracted.
Boom, your eyes go to that, your attention goes to that.
I can't work that with any other noise going on in the room, because I work really soft now.
I noticed that,
Yeah, I mean.
Do you like working soft?
I do now.
But you used to work really loud?
I mean, there was, there were other things involved through the 70s and 80s.
Of course. Like, how loud can we get these things? How much top end can we put on here?
Get things, hair blowing in the wind. But I actually want to keep doing this for a while. But it's sometimes I'll crank it up, but it's easier to really hear what's going on if you're mixing soft. It's you mix loud, your bass, you end up bass light, because the louder you turn something up, the more bottom you hear.
Yeah, of course.
It's
the Fletcher-Munson curve. Do you teach that to your students? Yeah, okay. Looking over at Fredo over here.
Working soft's a good thing,
Yeah, I like working soft as well. I like it because I just don't feel all beat up by it. And I come in the next morning and cool, just like that shit'll get to you after a little bit. Yeah. For sure. And I think things just sound, I don't know, it translates better for me personally. I'd like to ask you about a couple of my favorite bands that you've worked with. I made a little list here. I was like, oh my God, you worked with, my wife loves the Airborne Toxic Event. You worked with them. You worked with Sleeper Agent, which is a cool new band that I've kind of fallen in love with the last couple of years. Neon Trees, Block Party, and Red House Painters, which is...
Red House Painters. Good. That was I did a few records with Mark. There was one that we recorded up in Marin. Songs for a Blue Guitar.
Yeah.
Great sounding record,
Yeah, a buddy of mine just turned me on to that stuff, actually.
I know. Sometimes I get people will like see the website and come to me. Oh my God, you did Songs for a Blue Guitar. It's like, wow, that's some esoteric stuff. You actually heard that,
But that's cool, isn't it? I mean,
it's
that's
an awesome sounding record.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know some people still like enjoy it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So what was that process like? Can you give us any insight into that?
Mark's an interesting character to work with. That was a weird year. I remember telling Pauline that was the year I'd recorded All Sad Guys Named Mark, which was I was with Mark Eitzel. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
The name is familiar.
So it was Mark Eitzel, Mark Kozlik, and Mark Isham.
Okay.
I was kind of working with lots
of Marks. Like anywhere you looked, you just call the person Mark.
It was all just like, I mean, they're all just kind of really generally sad, heavy,
sober kind
tunes,
of anchored guys.
But yeah, Kozlik's an interesting guy. I really like Mark. I haven't seen him in a while, but he would he was always interesting to work with because as he's listening, he's like just rocks like
back and forth,
like violently rocking back
really?
and forth. Yeah.
Interesting.
I remember he lit the console on fire at what's the studio? There's a
all
studio.
Right, now we're talking. This is the shit I want to hear about.
Studio right up the street here. Forget the name of it. It was up here up on Los Feliz.
Yeah.
He always had candles that he would set around the studio on the console, and I was out of the studio. He was reading the paper and set the paper down on the console on there.
And then boom.
He came back in and like the whole monitor section is on fire. It's melted on the old.
I don't think candle wax is good for that either.
Yeah,
I don't think candle wax needs
knee,
to be.
but no, the actual plastic, all the whole
shit
monitor section melted was on fire.
Oh, fuck.
yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, that's a bad scene. Wasn't your studio, right?
No, I felt really bad.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was an old Neve 8020 8028.
Well, yeah, that's one of those records that's that I kind of discovered definitely after the fact through a friend, and when I kind of look around and I've mentioned it to a few other people, it's surprising that they kind of have the similar take on it that I do. It's a cool record.
He still does well. He tours solo a lot. He's just got such a cool vibe,
What are you working on right now that you think's really cool?
I've been working with Moby right now, doing a new record.
Cool.
Which I think today we just finished the last of 20 plus songs.
Whoa. Okay.
How that will assemble into a record, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Working on this Third Eye Blind thing that you guys heard when you walked in.
Sounds great.
Producing this Chris Isaac record, I'm 11 songs in on that, and I know Chris is in Nashville. I think he's still there today. He's working on another 6 in Nashville, and then we'll come back and see if we want to record any more.
Mm-hmm.
We might do another 3 or 4 here, and then Chris and I will kind of try to assemble this into some semblance of a record,
How many hours a day do you work? You must work a lot. Obviously, you enjoy it, so.
I usually, like I said, 6 in the morning till 6 at night.
Yeah.
5 in the morning till 6 at night. 12. I do my 12 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Right. 6 days a week, so you get one day off.
I try. I bought the boat, was kind of part to force me into. All right, I'm spending a lot of money keeping this boat running. I got to take Sunday off and drive it around.
Yeah, you got to work to keep the boat.
Yeah.
But then you got to have the time to at least go look at the boat or like stand on the boat. Yeah. What would you say? One of the speaking of the candle story. What would you say one of the crazier things you've seen happen in the recording studio is? I know you probably have a bazillion stories, and you'd have to kind of think of a good specific one.
There's some, you can't.
Well, obviously, there's probably a few. Yeah, that's fine.
I had one with when I was probably pretty early in my career. I had a band that we'd been working on a song all day, and about 6 in the morning, we were just finishing up the mix on it, and the singer started yelling, we forgot the second verse. Like, really? Like 18 hours we've been working on this song, you just realized we forgot the second verse? And they wanted me to set the whole thing back up. Because, you know, it wasn't Pro Tools. You could just,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
we had to, we wanted to set the whole, everything was torn down. We wanted to set
Holy
everything
shit,
back up.
like all
which
live
I just
music, I'm guessing, drums
no,
and shit?
you're out of here,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
They had the band pulled guns on me.
Oh.
And I had to, and like, I was just joking. Sure, we're going to set it back up, you know?
Did I say no?
Yeah.
I mean right away. In fact,
No
I'll do
problem.
it. No problem.
Yeah,
I'll be
that's what I
smiling
meant.
the whole
You
time.
didn't let me finish. That was an odd one.
Yeah.
But yeah, we set it back up, re-recorded the song.
When
with
did
the
they
second
did they call you again to do any work and you say
that was the last song I did with them.
you done.
It was I was kind of over it at that point.
That's pretty awesome.
Okay, it was kind of
How did you end up cutting that? Do you remember like what you did? You just splice a piece of tape in there, or what'd you do?
oh no, we re-recorded
The whole
song.
freaking track.
And we had to set everything, the whole band back up and re-record
From
the song.
top to bottom, yeah.
You know? I didn't have an assistant at that point. It was just me. I had
Yeah,
to go back
yeah.
6 I've been working for 18 hours at 6 in the morning. Like, oh crap, I gotta set all this back up. You know?
Yeah, you shouldn't be working with any bands, hopefully any more that are carrying guns on them into the studio.
Yeah, I don't-
and
yeah, I
things
don't
like
like
that.
that, you
Yeah,
know?
that's no good. No, not good, man. Not good. Any other like? Have you ever had any good like intern hazing stories?
I had an intern. I've had an
Or
intern.
destroying
I had
equipment.
an intern from France once who was always doing something wrong, which was we had Steve Miller was in my studio in San Francisco, and this guy would smoke a lot. I started to know what to say his name. He would smoke pot. I told him, "Dan, don't smoke a bunch of pot here in the sessions. Everybody else might be high." But
Yeah.
that's
not your- it's not your role.
I'm like, I'd been yelling about something, get something done, get this set up. Come on.
Yeah.
And he ran through the studio and tripped over Steve's like best acoustic guitar, and didn't just break the guitar. The guitar literally exploded. I mean, it was just it was just like some little pieces of it looked like a mobile attached with strings, which just like little pieces of
Little,
wood,
like, shards of
dangling.
wood.
And he goes, Mark, I think I broke the guitar. You know,
I think
it's
I
like,
broke the
Oh
guitar.
my God,
I think it's
dude,
broken.
You know, so Steve's out in the other room. I have to take the guitar. You know, I have to go out and try to explain to him that what happened. And he also.
He had to have gotten fired.
Yeah, you know, I gave him one more shot. It was the next week. I was.
You gave him another chance?
There was a guy,
God,
Nicky
you're a
Hopkins.
saint.
I don't know if you ever heard of Nicky Hopkins. He was a big piano player in
Yeah.
the 60s to the 70s. So Nicky was in the studio the next week. I hadn't fired him yet, and Nicky was a great piano. He was kind of a frail little guy, you know. He knocked over. He had the piano isolated out with some boots, and Nicky's piano warming up, and he knocked over this like a giant. The baffle was probably 10 feet high, a really heavy big baffle.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he even knocked it over.
This sounds like he has some coordination issues.
Somehow he managed, because I mean it was super heavy. It had big legs on it. He managed to knock that over, and the end of it came down and clipped Nicky in the head. And knocked him off the piano stool onto the floor. A big gash in his head. There's blood pouring down his face. I just went, you know, I felt so bad. You know,
Like, hey man,
yeah, that was it. I had to let him go at that point.
that's understandable.
Yeah,
I think you gave him plenty of room.
yeah. I felt so bad for poor Nicky. He was such a sweet guy. It's like, you know. I think I'm bleeding. It's like there's blood just pouring. He hasn't seen a mirror.
I think I'm
Like
bleeding.
the whole side of his
Oh, it's
head.
not too bad. It's
Yeah.
just a little blood.
Let me just try to clean it up for you before you look in the mirror.
Can I get some paper towels, please, in here, Stat? That's funny, man. That's funny. I've heard so many good intern stories when I talk to dudes that have been working their careers, have a little bit of a career in the industry and have been around a little bit. They have, God, intern stories are the best. The best. There any other kind of wild studio stories you can think of that you might be willing to share? I'm sure you have to self-censor a little and go, I don't want to tell that one because that's my pal, and he might not want me saying it. But
Well, it was. I mean, everybody who worked through the 70s, 80s, and especially the 80s there's a million of them. Most of them involved around too many drugs.
right.
I mean, I left another kind of famous band that I left at 10 o'clock at night. Everybody was doing a lot of blow.
Yeah.
And I just let, they wanted to keep working all night. It was 10 o'clock, and I was going to leave. I left them with my assistant. I was going to come back in the morning. I came back in at 10 in the morning. I left them. They were just putting a conga part on, and then they were going to leave. That was it.
Yeah.
And I came back in at 10 in the morning. They're all still sitting with the same conga part. This is 12 hours. They've been working on the same conga.
Holy shit.
It's like, oh my God, what are you guys doing?
We've almost got it. We've almost got it.
The jaws were going. I mean, I have a million of those kind of stories, but
Yeah. Well, lighting the Neve on fire is a good story.
it was that was all a different time, and it was interesting at the time. I'm glad that that's not how sessions go anymore.
Yeah, that's not how it's working right now for you. Yeah. Yep, I hear you.
I like getting up. I like being up early, going home.
I love the fact that you do your hours 6 to 6 or something around that. Like, that's cool, man. I try to limit personally try to limit my studio hours because I think, man, there's a lot to life. And in our business, you can really get sucked into your work, and we all probably are doing it because we love it. But there's also a lot of other cool things out there too. And if you get a little too,
if I'm producing records like with Chris, we went a little later, but we were only, we tracked for 10 days. We got 11 songs.
on the new record.
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty much done with 11 songs.
And this was over at East West in the B room.
Yeah. Did a few vocal overdubs, but so I will. Obviously, I can't. If I'm producing or if I'm working with Steve, if Stevie Nicks is there, I'm not.
Obviously you'll make. Obviously, if you need to make sacrifices because you think it'll be better for the art, it's no big deal. I'll stay up late. We'll do whatever we need to do if it's going to make the song better. But if that's not a factor, it's nice.
That's not my general lifestyle anymore.
Yeah.
Where it is, if it's a band that's out on the road all the time, that is their life, and it's just not mine anymore.
Yeah, right. That's because the band that's on the road all the time. If they're in a tour bus, they're going to bed at 3 in the morning on a tour bus and waking up the next day at their next destination. And that's how that's how they've been for a while, and that's
That's one thing I like about mixing. I can kind of, especially mixing now because most mixing is done. By far the biggest majority, I don't have A&R guys coming in, I don't have bands coming in. Mm-hmm. It's all just over the internet.
Yeah.
I can stream if there's a question about something, I just stream the output of the console and get them on the Skype call. Yeah, here's this solo, here's that solo. Okay, here's that up a DB. Like that, great, we're done.
Do you have any plugins right now that you're just completely enthralled with? Do you have some go-to in the box stuff right now?
I mean, I have a lot of stuff that I use all the time.
Right. You seem to be into. I have to preface that question with, you seem to be into the idea of being very flexible and trying new things, whereas some guys seem to be like, I found what I like, I found what works for me, I'm going to stick with this. And I'm not saying there's not a component of that to what you do, but you also don't seem to be afraid to jump in and replace my old setup with the 2 giant ravens I see behind you. I mean, that's a pretty big. That's bold, man. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly don't mind trying different.
Yeah.
We're going to lose completely. I think I decided today we're just going to lose just the analog component when we come back. So I just decided that today I'd set up a configuration that I thought sounded as good or better, and we're going to. Are you
using any kind of console modeling these days in the box, or are you kind of steering clear of that?
I don't do the console modeling that much. That works for some people. I mean, I use a lot of. I'm a UAD artist and use everything they have. I mean, all that UAD. I mean, all of it is great.
You're right.
The UAD stuff, it's crazy. I mean, how good that stuff is.
Yeah.
I use the way I use a lot of.
I love the UAD stuff, and I can't speak enough about how amazing that stuff is to me.
I mean, I go through.
I've done some. As I'm not to interrupt your thought, but I've done some extensive testing myself with. I did a really pretty deep test with the UAD new Pultecs and a nice pair of Pultecs from a highly respected rental company here in Los Angeles, and I love the ones that I got from the rental company. They were amazing and well maintained. That UAD plug-in sounded pretty darn good, man.
Yeah,
pretty darn good.
I had two from I got from Alan Parsons that were that they use on all the Pink Floyd records, and these things were fantastic.
I bet.
But I compared back and forth. It's like, well, this one I'm gonna have to maintain,
Yeah.
because they're getting really old, and this other one I could just, if something goes wrong, I just reinstall it, and it sounds the same. I go through. I talk to artists that are, people that I'm doing mixes for. That I look at what if they're using. There's so many like weird little esoteric plugins that are cheap that do incredible things. You know? So I get those that are coming in on mixes. I'm like, well, this is cool. This is going on and I go through. I was on the internet today, just going through seeing what I've switched to Pro Tools 11, so I'm just seeing what cool new things are available. Like all the Valhalla stuff. Those reverbs.
Valhalla Vintage Verb. I bought that one.
That thing's awesome.
Yeah,
it just got
great.
a cool sound. But there's so
it's
many.
It's like
$50.
$50.
Yeah,
I think it was $50. I bought it. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, there's so many of those cool little plugins that are just.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that to be my only, but and I want something that really sets the backgrounds apart. $50. Wow,
that's
this
awesome.
Seems like, So I just love to go through and find, like, every time I get a new plugin, it'll be all over a few mixes for a while.
Yeah, for a minute.
I
one older plugin that I've stuck around with for a while is the Crane Song Phoenix. I don't know if you've ever jammed with that one a little bit. But
I have. I'm not
really
a fan of any of those things.
Yeah. Well, if you got the sound, if you are getting the sound you want with, if you don't feel like it needs that extra saturation or distortion or whatever, you got other ways to get it done.
I see what they do. I do it in different ways,
Yeah.
But I know some people who swear by those and use them all the time. I just, I used them for a little while. I have other ways that I kind of do the same thing, and I just kind of stay with variations on that.
Do you have a system for routing that you tend to plug into internally in Pro Tools? Like, do you have? I have my own little system that I kind of use for my busing and stuff like that. Or do you do everything different all the time?
I have the same. I do the same layout. I do the same, like, just starting just how I lay out my tracks. I do that the same as I've done it for the past 35 years. Or I know where anything is on the session, just because that's how I've laid things out, exact same order.
What's always your first track?
I would do kick, snare, overhead left, overhead right, hi-hat, tom, room, room left, room right, room mono. Then I'll go to any percussions, loops, things like that.
Percussions, and then...
and that doesn't always fit with every song, because some will have 15 kicks and 25 snares. But I have a way that I lay the stuff out, and I always do it exactly the same.
Yeah.
At least
go bass next.
I'll do any percussion, things like that, then bass, acoustic instruments, electric guitars, keyboard. And I just kind of go down the line the same way I would lay it, that I laid out consoles in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, why change it? Because then right where it is doesn't require any thought. That's why labeling your stuff, guys. If you're listening to this, label your stuff before you give it to Mark.
Audio 2.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You got to keep that stuff organized for yourselves too.
I get stuff in from people all the time where, the way they have the session laid out is, vocal, kick drum, two guitars, and then maybe there'll be a bunch of some keys and then a tom, and that, like, oh my God, and it's just maybe in the order that they recorded it, or I just don't see how you can ever find anything, you just keep. It's amazing to me, and then just my routing setup. I have a certain way that I always lay things out. To that I'm always using bus. generally I'm using bus 17 and 18 are going to are going to be my verse reverbs, and or maybe 15, 17 through 17. Yeah, so I have pretty consistent ways that I do every time. Obviously that varies across songs, but I tend to stay with a general map. I know where everything is without.
You do a lot of bussing of your effects still and stuff like that. I've talked to a couple of my interns and looked at some of their stuff right now, and like I see a lot more just people throw it. Like there's so much processing power. They're like, I'm just going to put up a reverb plug on every track that I want to have a reverb on. I'm like, well, that's one way to get it done. I suppose why not?
Groups of things. I don't do but I lay out a lot more aux returns and effects than I would have done on a console. Just I used a lot. I used a lot of patches when I was on consoles. I would use a crazy amount of patches to do things, but so I would have a lot of effects and I had a lot of output here. So I had crazy stuff going on a console, but I love this. I can really have distinct reverbs for different sections of the tune so easily, and or an instrument can do one weird thing at one point, being able to automate all your effects so easily now.
Do you do a lot of automation in your work?
I do as much as it needs to make the song sound good. When I've done when the recording's been done really well, and I've done a great job just laying the song out, I chop parts up a lot too, from between verses and choruses.
So you have your vocal on the verse vocal, chorus vocal.
Yeah, bridge vocals, certain lines. So, if I do a really good job, I should be able to just, without any automation at all, if I can just hit play and the tune goes through and sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, this is gonna be, I can do 35 minutes of automation and we're done. Because I laid it out right and everything's sounding good.
From beginning to end, on average, because obviously it's going to vary radically depending on what project. From beginning to end, how long does it take you to mix a song?
Well, first pass or with recalls on it. With first pass, probably average 2.5 to 3 hours, and with recalls maybe another hour. Sometimes it'll be an hour and a half, and sometimes it'll be 4, but somewhere in that range,
And then usually you're like, hey, I'm cool with that. I'm feeling that. That's good. That's all it takes, huh? Because I'm not in that zone, man. I'm definitely a lot longer than that.
Yeah, I've talked with Algie about this. We've had conversation.
Are you guys racing each other?
No, but we both kind of go with. I don't fret a lot over decisions that I make on what something should sound like. I might make a wrong decision, but I make a decision and forge ahead.
Yeah.
This is what it's going to be, and majority of the time that seems to work out okay for me. Not always. Sometimes it's like, what'd you do with my song? Oh my God, I can change it, but give me another hour. I can make, if you tell me what you want it to sound like, I can do it. You can just give me a vibe. But sometimes, people will hear the way I approach something and like, wow, this is a way we hadn't really thought about the tune.
Well,
before.
based on that time frame, how do you manage with like these your large track counts? Because I'm imagining like a lot of your stuff now is probably much bigger track counts than it was, say, 5-10 years ago. Do you have an assistant that gets that stuff kind of ready for you? You just kind of go.
Just they put it in order that I.
Yeah, your layout.
Yeah, just the order that they know I lay stuff out in. But
they label them up for you and stuff too?
Yeah.
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 Cool.
They generally have stuff kind of labeled and just in the order that I like to see things. I don't have somebody like prepping the session. I'm going to put this EQ on this or something.
Yeah.
I don't really have somebody doing a premix for me or anything. But that works for some people. That's not what I do.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have any thoughts, questions, Fredo?
You took the last question.
Which was what? Like, how do you manage?
Preparation.
Yeah.
Because banging out a mix that fast, you know what I mean? Like, to me, I spend almost an hour just organizing the thing sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you get a large track count, throwing up all my auxes and kind of everything I want to do.
Yeah, Ben lays the stuff out for me, and I'll usually go through just putting things up. It's like I'll move some things around because it's what I consider how I would lay out basses, you know. I will do it a little differently sometimes. Just once I hear it, you know, it's like, no, this bass should be. There's 6 basses here. I want it to go a really particular way that always works to me in my head. You know, once the things are laid out and once I kind of start getting a vibe for the tune, I can usually go through really fast. Kind of, here's how I want things to sound and where they should be. I usually just construct the tune all the way through, and just, you know, kind of generally, here's what, you know, just hearing all the instruments and what kind of sound and where I want them panned, and then I just mute everything. I have all my groups set up at that by the time I get to there. Then I just mute everything and start over at the top again and go through it, just kind of fine tweak stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
would you say you're like very accepting of how you receive the recording? Like, do you ever find yourself editing any of it?
Oh, all the
Is it
time.
just kind of, this is what it is. And you just
No, I mean, yeah, I do that all the time. It's if you know, some people really want that kind of input. Like, hey, you know, if there's a lot of stuff just play all the time, make this work, and which is great. You know, I mean, and sometimes I'll add parts. I will take parts out if I need. You know, I mean, you know, it depends on the artist and the song. Some artists would, you know, would have a kitten if anything's changed. But, you know, I'm certainly not afraid to take parts out, add my own parts, or, you know, whatever it takes.
You know, I would have to say, I really appreciate it when an artist allows me to at least showcase some thoughts, you know?
Well, at the end of the day...
And I think a guy like you, who's been doing it for a while, is got such credibility, is probably pretty easy.
Well, but I can be wrong, too. You don't know unless you hear it, you know? We hear it, and it's like, well, I mean, it's all about what's getting the emotion that you're trying to deliver. I mean, usually a song is trying to make people feel one way or another, sad, happy, in love, and out of love. You know, what gets that feeling across and makes people understand what the artist is originally trying to get across by doing the song. And, you know, whatever you can do to make that work.
Because that's all that matters in the end, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's all that matters. I mean,
that's why I don't like to talk about gear too much on the podcast. Like, I obviously haven't done too many of these yet, but I don't want to get too bogged down in the gear and the technical aspect of what you do, because I feel like that's just like a hammer in your toolbox. But ultimately, you're chipping away with a hammer and a chisel at a sculpture, but you don't give a shit about the hammer and the chisel as much as you give a shit about the sculpture.
Yeah, and you know, some great songs have been done on really crappy gear and horrible. I mean, Mr. Brightside was, I mixed that on just an 8-input console with no automation, and probably 35 minutes or something.
Are you serious?
But
wow,
it was a great tune, and it all just kind of came together. And well,
so you in that situation, you think, hey, we got a great tune. I kind of like it.
I wanted to go back and redo it, but the band was like, no, you're crazy. This is awesome.
They loved it.
You know?
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, it did well. It's their
Spoke
biggest
to
song.
somebody. Yeah. That's for sure.
Spirit in the Sky. If you remember that. Do you remember that tune?
Oh, of course.
That was a friend of mine, Eric Jacobson, I used to work with a lot. He was a producer. He'd never recorded anything before, and he showed up at the studio to do that song. The engineer was drunk and didn't show up for the session, and Eric had never recorded it, and the only mics that were out in the studio, he couldn't get a key to get into the mic locker. The only mics were remember those silver EV horse stick mics?
Yes.
Those ones with the little ridge, you know
yeah,
what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
That was the only mics that were not locked away that he could get to. So Spirit in the Sky was Eric's first recording, and that was the only mics he had. Were like 6 of those EVs.
He did the whole thing with those.
That was it. Spirit in the Sky. I mean, that's a big tune, man.
Yeah.
You know,
that's awesome. Well, if I think we've taken quite a bit of your time, so I don't really want to take too much more. But if an artist. Do you welcome indie artists trying to get in touch with you? I mean, I know you're busy. I know you get your hands full, but
no, we get we have our little contact through the website there, and You know, we talk to anybody and try to help people make. If I can see if I can help make their songs better.
Great.
You know?
So you would encourage anybody to say, hey, if you want to chat, contact me. Yeah.
Reach out.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any personal projects or endeavors you'd like to talk about on the podcast at all? You got going on that I'm not aware of or haven't brought up yet?
Well, we have 3 things in development right now, but
Not ready to
really put them out there yet.
Yeah, put them out into the
probably,
world.
Probably in a couple weeks or something.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mark.
Guys, thanks for coming over.
It was so awesome that you were able to give us an hour, and we really appreciate it.
No problem.
Back just before I coughed.
Studio is so incredible looking. Blown my mind.